Good morning. I am Chris.
I'm Ruth.
Amazing. And this is our midweek series on reading the Bible together. It's suitable for all ages, and we're going to enjoy reading and reacting to what we find in the Bible. We're using the NIV, and if you want to get your Bible out so that you're ready to join in with us. And this series that we're doing is combining with our Sunday services. So our Sunday services are looking at church and what it means to be church using the book of Acts. And so we thought, I wonder what's in the Old Testament about church. And so we're going back in time to discover some things in the Old Testament that remind us of church. And so each week one of us is going to pick something that we can look at to help remind us of church in the Old Testament. I've picked this story, which is from 2 Samuel chapter 6. So 2 Samuel is in the Old Testament. After you've gone Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, then it's Joshua, Judges, Ruth's in there somewhere as well, and then you've got 1 and 2 Samuel, and it's the story of the prophet Samuel and then King David's reign. And so 2 Samuel is about King David's reign, and we're in 2 Samuel chapter 6. So hopefully you can find that. You can use the index at the front of your Bible to help you. That can be really useful as well. And we're going to be starting reading at verse 11.
And if you want to imagine it, this is it in the Action Bible. This is what it looks like. So if you've got something that's got pictures in, that's great to use as well. Exactly.
So we're starting at verse 11 of 2 Samuel chapter 6. The ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite for 3 months, and the Lord blessed him and his entire household.
Okay, back up a little bit. Who was Obed-Edom and what was the house of the Lord? What is the ark and what was it doing there?
Yeah, this is obviously that's like kind of in the middle of the story, so we need to backtrack slightly to find out what was going on. So the ark of the Lord is the Ark of the Covenant, which if you watch Indiana Jones, it's the gold box that they search for. Is
that actually what it is?
That was actually what it was.
Okay.
I mean, they don't use the actual one in Indiana Jones. They just made a model of it. But it's a gold box where Moses put the 10 Commandments into.
Wow. Okay.
And even more than that, it was the place where, for the Israelites, it was like they could carry God with them. So as they were moving around from place to place, this was where the presence of God was.
Okay.
And so the presence of God was with them when they had that.
So it wasn't just like a way of carrying a thing with them, the thing that they needed to take.
It wasn't just like carrying your Bible round, it was like carrying God round.
Wow, God cool. In a box.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and
slightly mind-blowing.
It is, which is why the verse before says that David's a bit afraid of God, because it's like they were always worried that God's going to break out and do something, because God's so powerful, and you can't keep him locked up in a box.
No.
So there's this box, and Israel have got some enemies called the Philistines.
Okay.
And at one point, Israel stops trusting in God, the Philistines defeat them in battle, and they take the ark away from Israel.
Gosh, that must have been a massive thing. If that was where the presence of God was, and that's taken away from the people.
Yeah, and this is getting me sidetracked, because then there's a really cool bit where they put the ark in the temple next to their God, and they come back the next morning and their God's fallen face down on the floor, the statue of their God.
I mean, that's pretty
God's
cool.
like, no, I'm God. And then the next day they put it back upright, and then it falls over and its head falls off. So God says no to other gods. I'm the one.
I am the only one.
I'm the one, and you can. So this box is clearly significant. This is where God is choosing to show His presence to the world. And they've now finally won it back from the Philistines.
Okay.
And it's resting in the house of Obed-Edom, who lives near the border with Philistine.
Great.
But David has just established a new capital city.
Who's David?
David's the king.
Okay, pretty important guy.
Israel's second king, and he's just established Israel's new capital city, Jerusalem. which is
Okay.
still its capital city.
Cool.
So
Jerusalem, as in that place called Jerusalem that still is Jerusalem today.
it still exists today, and there's still the evidence of David's original city, which is really cool. So this is the city that David has chosen to be the capital city, and so he's now like, we should have the presence of God in the heart of
the city
country. Yeah.
God.
So, verse 12. Now David was told this, that the Lord has blessed the household of Obed-Edom and everything he has because of the ark of God. God's there, blessings are happening. Yeah. So David went down and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David, which is Jerusalem, with rejoicing. So that's really cool because David's been wanting the presence of God, and he really wants it to be in his city. He's seen how great it is to be in the presence of God, how much blessing that brings, and so he really desires God. And that was one of the first things that reminded me of church in this reading, was that in church, when we go to church, we want God's presence. We want to be in God's presence and receive the blessings that he's offering. So let's carry on. Not to get too distracted, because that's only the second verse. Now, verse 13. When those who were carrying the ark of the Lord had taken 6 steps, he sacrificed a bull and a fattened calf.
And why? It sounds like it's going to be a fairly big journey anyway, carrying this massive golden box that is the presence of God. Why would they faff around with doing sacrifices?
So
that seems a bit strange.
Well, I think this is really cool because when people come to church, they sometimes treat church as like, what can I get out of church? What can church give me? Where's the place I can get the best music or the best teaching or whatever? But
best biscuits.
Yeah, the best biscuits, the best coffee. But what God tells us is that that church is also about, it's not just a place where we receive God's blessings, but also where we give to God, where we say, God, you're the best. We're wanting to bring something to church, to share with God and with everyone. And so the sacrifices were their way of giving something to God.
Okay.
In the Old Testament.
So presumably they're using the animals that they have, so it's their things that they would have used to eat and to pull their ploughs and stuff like that, but they're giving all of that to God.
Yeah, they're giving something up to God and saying, we think you're worth giving this up to you.
Cool.
We want to give you something. We want to show you how much we love you. So that's like, it's all part of this being in God's presence and wanting to show God how much they value him. And David is wearing a linen ephod and danced before the Lord with all his might. It would be like even more than that, like all his might. I don't know if I've ever danced with all my might before. Can you imagine, like all of your strength just going for it? Yeah, like all your might, dancing before the Lord. It'd be pretty crazy.
What is a linen ephod?
Funny you should ask that. This is one of the reasons I found this passage quite funny, because it's basically like not wearing very much. So he's kind of dancing in his underwear. So it's
the king.
Yeah.
The king is dancing
in his underwear. So it would probably have been like a really simple
like a tunic.
White under tunic type thing. I think they sometimes wore it on the top, which is why it's confusing. So it might have been like wearing an apron, but like a double-sided apron, a front and back apron.
Okay.
But that's it.
So King David, king of all of the people of Israel, dancing
in his
undergarments.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's quite funny.
Why
the Bible's really funny. So David is dancing in not very many clothes before the Lord with all his might, while he and the entire house of Israel, so not just like one or two people, like the entire house of Israel, thousands of people have all come to join in. And that's one of the great things about church, isn't it? That we all join in together. And so they're joining in with shouts and the sound of trumpets. That's what sounds trumpets makes.
I'm not going to do it.
Cool.
Gordon should be doing this.
Yeah, and with shouts. So they're all getting involved. They're all joining in and shouting and praising God. And it's like everyone joins together, which is a great thing about church as well. And so as the Ark of the Lord, as this gold box is being carried into the city of David, Michal, who's the daughter of Saul and also David's wife.
It doesn't say that.
No, and I think they're probably trying to show you that because Saul was the king before David, and Saul quite often got jealous of David because he could see the presence of God with him. So I think they're kind of that. I think the writers draw in this parallel to say, look, this person's getting jealous, just like her father did.
Yeah.
So Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window. So she's not taking part.
Ooh,
she's
sort of over here, looking on,
just watching from her window. When she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart.
Ooh, that's not a very happy emotion, is it? It's not a good feeling.
And we're going to get back to her because she tells him exactly what she thinks of him.
I bet she does.
So they brought the ark of the Lord, set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before the Lord. And after he had finished sacrificing the burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord Almighty. So it's that thing of he's bringing something to God and then wanting the blessings of God for the people. So it's really cool again.
Amazing. So he's leading them in as like the person that's leading. He's not just their king that's deciding lots of things, but he's leading them in their worship.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to help them worship the Lord Almighty. Then this is really cool because I think we ought to do this every church service.
Okay.
He gives every person there a loaf of bread.
Every person.
A cake of dates,
thousands of people,
and a cake of raisins. I mean, he is the king, so he's pretty rich. Okay. But he gives a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins. So bread and 2 cakes. That's good after church refreshments.
I mean, there's probably not cakes like with flour and icing on top. It probably just means like squished down raisins.
Yeah, but like a little, like a thing like that, probably. So not like a cake for each person, but like a cake, 2 cakes though. So it's still better than a biscuit and than Ribena. So his after church refreshments game is strong. And he gives it to everyone, both men and women, and all the people go home.
That's amazing that they're not just worshipping God by dancing and praising, but they're sharing together. They're giving food and eating together.
I think eating's a big part of church, and we should do it more.
We should. I'm excited to do that when we're free from lockdown. I'm excited to come and eat with you guys in St John's and St Mary's.
And so then David returns home to bless his household because worship doesn't finish at like when you're at church all together. You can come home and kind of bring that blessing of church with you.
Amazing.
Like the food, eat food together, and God's presence there.
And also, I would imagine if they've been dancing that much, they're probably going to still be like boogieing on the way home, like having a little praise party in the living room.
With the trumpets. He's come home to bless his household, and he gets met with Michal, daughter of Saul, comes out to meet him and says, "Oh, how the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, disrobing in the sight of the slave girls of his servants, as any vulgar fellow would."
So pretty sarcastic, because I'm assuming that she doesn't mean that he's distinguished himself.
No, she means the opposite. It's sarcasm. It's definitely sarcasm. She is
mad.
Yeah, she's mad.
Grumpy, cross, irritated, embarrassed.
Yeah, I think there's a big part of embarrassment. She's like, this reflects on me because it's my husband who's dancing around making a fool of himself.
And if she's...
Which I know you can relate to. Because I do that.
I do too.
We dance around and make fools of ourselves. So she's like, this isn't how a king should be behaving. This is, and I think she's making him sound, wanting to say that he's childish and also a bit vulgar. Like, why are you doing that? You're just making a spectacle of yourself. And David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord."
So he knows that even though he's king, even though she might think that he should behave in a certain way, actually the thing that he wants to do most of all is to worship God, because God has chosen him, loves him, has anointed him as king.
Yeah. And he also is saying that it's God's opinion that's the only one that matters. There might be thousands of people there, But for him, there's one audience. We call it the audience of one. There's only one person there who he cares about watching him.
Which is impressive, because as the king, I imagine, you want to be presenting yourself in a certain way. The king of Israel would want for everyone to think that he's excellent and wonderful and, oh, what a great king we have. But he is only focused on what God thinks. He knows that God has chosen him, and so why would he care what the people think?
And there are definitely times when he's still a good king. It's not like he just ignores the people. But in this moment, he's saying, there's one person I'm here to please, and that's God. And that's such an amazing attitude. I think sometimes adults really struggle in church to kind of show God with all of that they've got, all that they want to show, how much they love God, because we get embarrassed and wonder what other people are going to think of us. And so actually, if there are any kids watching this, we need you to keep on helping show us how to worship God with all our might, to dance before the Lord with all our strength,
to run and sing and be fun and
just go
joyful.
for it. We try our best when we do action songs, but even we find we want to do more. We want to go with all our strength, but it's really hard to do. So it's so amazing that David is setting us this example, and that's what we want to aspire to. Because he says, "I'll become even more undignified than this. I don't even care. I'll go even further than this to show God how great He is. I'll be humiliated in my own eyes. So even I might think I look stupid. Even if I think I look stupid, it doesn't matter as long as God doesn't. As long as God loves what I'm doing, then."
And if you're looking stupid for the sake of looking stupid, that's not worship, is it? But if you are truly using your body and your voice and your everything to worship God, then it doesn't matter what you look like. If that's what you're doing, then that's what you're going to do, isn't it?
And then the final line says, "But by these slave girls that you spoke of, I'll be held in honour." And I was trying to think about what this bit meant, and I was thinking that the slave girls are the ones that were out there joining in the singing and the dancing.
Okay.
And I think it's one of those things where for people outside worship, it might look crazy. Like they might look at, so a stranger walks into the church and sees us all singing and dancing, and they might be like, "What's going on?" But for those who join in, it's like, we get this. We're all going for this together.
We are and part of it.
And this person who's helping lead us in that, oh, that's great. We respect that. We respect that he's going for it for God. And so that's why I think the slave girls would respect David more than his wife does.
And clearly they saw something that they wanted to be part of. They saw this person worshipping God with all their heart. They're like, yes, we want to join in with that. And so went and joined in. Yeah.
So that's the bit that reminds me of church from the Old Testament. Next week, Ruth's going to pick a bit that reminds her of church in the Old Testament, the first half of the Bible, and we're going to have a look at that. But we like to leave you with an activity to do or a challenge. And our challenge today is, will you go out, pick a song and dance before the Lord with all your might? And this is cool because we're all shut in lockdown, so you could probably find a room where no one else can watch you, just God, and we can just practice going for it, dancing before God with all our might. And we've actually recorded a new song which is going to be out on YouTube. I'll post the link. It's coming out, I think, in 15 minutes or so. It's going to premiere on YouTube because we coordinated it like that. It's called "At the Top of My Lungs I'll Sing, with all of my heart I will praise you." And so it's a really good one to just try and go for it with all your strength and dance before God today.
Maybe there's something else that you do that you do with all of your strength. Maybe you're a musician and you play beautiful music. Maybe
or singing with all your strength.
Yes, maybe there's different things. So we would challenge you, maybe pop it in the comments what you're going to go and do. But we would love you if you want to tell us what that is, and then just go. We could have what time is it? 10 to 11. Let's go and have 10 minutes of just praising God with all our might. How incredible would that be? And we know that each other's doing it as well. So we're not on our own doing it, but we are doing it before the Lord, and He's our only audience, the only one that's watching us.
Let's go!
Woo!